This will save me about phone calls. And that was the purpose for calling today's conference. And we also have the superintendent, person of the Board of Education here if you should have questions for them. But this is an opportunity for us to answer any questions and concerns you might want to express now that ICE has engaged in their enforcement action, not only in the city of Portland, but it appears in the metro as well. So I want to respond to the fact that our communities feel anxious and fearful. They see this action as unpredictable and a threat to their families. Collectively and individually, we've done everything we can to assure them and that we believe in their right to be safe, and we've tried to direct resources their way to support their capacity to stay here in Portland. From hybrid education the schools offering, food sustenance, and just getting the rights and responsibilities out to all key parties so they know what to do should they engage a federal officer. I want to underscore one important point. While we respect the law, we challenge the need for a paramilitary approach to the enforcement of federal statutes. Federal immigration law is lawful. Its administration and enforcement is lawful. While we may dispute the basis for those laws as individual citizens, the fact remains, it is federal law. What we've been concerned with as a council is the enforcement tactics that ICE has undertaken in other communities, which to our mind appear to threaten and intimidate populations. If they change the way they do their business, then we can focus on doing our responsibility as citizens and changing policy through our elected officials. So this council doesn't stand apart from our immigrant communities, but we stand with them. As a reminder, the Portland Police Department does not involve itself in the enforcement of civil administrative violations under federal immigration statute. As police officers, if there is a call for support having to do with imminent threat to life or serious bodily injury, no matter who the agency or individual is, we will respond as we would to any one of you calling 911. That is our duty in terms of public safety. I'll interrupt for a moment. Councilor Fournier, you can join us up here. So we received a lot of information from the public that enforcement contacts have occurred in the community, and that has come in the form of text or phone calls or shared videos. So we know they're there. I will remind the public, allow officers to do their work, do not obstruct. The best thing you can do is to be the best possible witness should the facts that come before you are needed by any future investigation or judicial inquiry. All right, if officers are acting with warrant, they are within the law. And this is not the place or the time to challenge that. I want everyone safe. Interrupting law enforcement action is a risk conduct. It may feel appropriate in the moment, but it could lead to outcomes neither party wished upon each other when they began the transaction. So I want to make that clear. I also respect the right to dissent, to protest, to express your misgivings or rejection of current government policy. If all of you decide to do that, our police department has demonstrated an exemplary history in protecting that expression of constitutional right, and we will continue to do so. Before I came out here, someone came in and said, if we did a protest, what would be safe? And I assured him that the Portland Police Department would do its job, as it always has, impartially, professionally. The other concern we had about ICE arriving, and I put it this way as a former member of law enforcement, what Mayor Dion and I expect is that federal agencies and their agents will conduct themselves in a professional manner, respect the rule of law, and treat our citizens without the use of provocation. Exercise the restraint that's necessary. These are standards that are not alien to anyone who carries a badge. It's the standard we expect of our municipal police officers, and I hope and pray it's a standard that the director of ICE would exercise against their agents. So, with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Mayor,
Yes?
are you aware that there are a number of businesses in town that have put signs in their windows saying that ICE is not welcome?
I want to allow Councilor Pelletier to address that, because one of the businesses is in his district.
Can you introduce yourself, full name, spelling?
I'm Wes Pelletier, Wespelletier. I'm the city councilor in District 2, which is that way. I want to be really clear, this is a war of terror that's being waged on our city by the federal government. We've seen people of all ages getting thrown on the ground and getting thrown into trucks. And in response, people of Portland, business owners, teachers, college kids have formed a network to make sure that we have early warnings and that we are able to get there in time to, at the very least, get a name before someone disappears. We have people delivering groceries to mothers that need diapers, but they're too afraid to leave because they know, correctly, that as soon as they leave, there's going to be 4 guys in the unmarked car outside their driveway that will throw them to the ground and take them, nobody really knows where. While every single abduction that's happened is a wound to Portland, it's been very clear that every single one has underlined just how important immigrants are to our community. They're the backbone of our economy. They are the kids that are getting on school buses. They are the families that go out to eat and make life what it is. And no one asked the federal government to come here. This is one of the safest cities in the country. But because of an agenda of white nationalism and might makes right, we now have a war on our streets. So, what I would ask, I don't expect much from Senator Collins, from the administration, but I would ask that the Democrats, who are supposed to have our backs, grow a little bit of a spine and do what a random mother in any of our neighborhoods is willing to do and take action to abolish ICE. Thanks. I can also answer questions.
Do you have any sense, Mayor, of how many arrests have taken place in the last couple of days in the greater Portland area?
I don't. If it was just based on videos I received, it'd be less than a half dozen. I know ICE has declared there's been 50 in Maine. So it's an open question.
And are you getting any communication from ICE, DHS, anyone in the federal government on this?
No. But that's a consequence. In years preceding this council being seated, our predecessors passed an ordinance that limits the cooperation of the Portland Police as it applies to the enforcement immigration statutes from the federal level. So if we're not cooperating, I think it's reasonable to anticipate they're not calling. And we're not calling them either, because we're clear about what our mission is is to protect the overall public safety, and they have a very discrete, narrow responsibility to enforce immigration law.
What have you heard from the ground? What is happening? How aggressive are they? What is the worst you've heard?
I think I've heard narratives from the ground that suggest real anxiety and fear just with their presence. Councilor Ali? I'll turn to Councilor Ali. He's the mayor pro tem, and he does engage many of our diverse communities in the city for his opinion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Full
I-
name and spelling?
Come again.
Full name and spelling first.
My name is Pius, Pious, and my last name is Ali. And what I would say is that people on the ground are organized. I think one of my colleagues have said that earlier. People are afraid, they are scared. People's anxiety have gone up because they don't know what to expect. Imagine you are a parent and you step out to put your kid in a school bus. By the time you turn around, you are surrounded by ICE agents, and they are ready to take you with them. Who is going to take your child when they come back from school? So, because we don't want that to happen in our community, there have been a lot of community groups coming together. We have created different channels where anything that somebody needs, whether it is food or if they want their kids to be put in the school bus on their behalf, there are people on the ground that are going to do that. And I also want to add this. I think if the federal government is looking for anyone in this country, so far as the person engaged the system, the federal government knows how to get that person without intimidation, without unleashing terror on our streets. And I would say that we are here and we are willing to support our community as much as we can within the boundaries of the laws. And we are not going to be intimidated by what is happening on the streets. Thank you.
The Somali community in Minnesota is kind of focus of the ICE enforcement happening there. Is that also true in Portland?
Well, I don't know, but based on photos that were published by ICE, it seems the case that it's people of color, not necessarily from Somalia, and I'll discuss that in a moment. Any other questions? Yes.
What happens if ICE doesn't comply with the rules, like you said, they hope they do, you hope they do, how would the city respond? Obviously, this is something that we saw in Minneapolis, where they're withholding investigative materials.
Well, you can't decide how you're going to cross the bridge till you get there, all right? I think that's important. I don't like to speculate on what's going to happen. As a lawyer, and as lawyers would agree, a cause for action has to be established by conduct. And speaking of conduct, I think Minneapolis was characterized by notable massing of federal agents entering a neighborhood. And I think the narrative of invasion arose from that perspective. What I'm hearing from, and I talked with mayors today in other parts of the state, we're seeing very individualized activity by ICE, a person here, a neighborhood there. Their conduct, at least as it's current in Maine, seems to be focused, which would indicate to me, and this is the speculation, is that they're functioning on the basis of an actual court warrant. So therefore, they've identified a party, they have an address, they know who they're looking for specifically, as opposed to this random show me your papers kind of experience. So by doing so, I don't think we're going to see groupings of agents just patrolling a neighborhood. I think we're going to get individualized reports from families. Like I received one from a mother saying that her son was arrested at a grocer as he came out of work. And I've heard a rumor that a hospital saw some of their staff removed. But it seems like it's more specific. If that's the case, it appears that ICE may have evolved the way in which they want to engage a community for purposes of enforcement. And I appreciate the U.S. Attorney's comments that he was paying attention to the situation and wanted for peaceful transactions by all parties. So we'll see. At the end of the day, we'll see. That's why it's important to document with your witness. In the future, there may be individuals, attorneys, or judicial processes that will need your information. Anything else? Go ahead.
Do you have any message for business owners who are not just posting signs, but, are very fearful about, carrying on doing their businesses? Any reassurances the city can provide that they will be safe and can continue to do commerce?
Well, we want them to do commerce. I mean, one of the meetings I participated with, representatives from the immigrant community, immigrant businesses, and the chamber was to set up a communications channel. We provided them with resources so they'd be clear about their rights and what steps they could take to protect their employees. But it's hard because it's individualized. If they're coming for one specific person, that's going to have a different outcome on the business as opposed to saying, you appear to have hired a number of individuals who may have come from another country. We're going to line them up outside and check their papers. I don't think we're there, to be fair. I think we're in the individualized piece. And just to reinforce about the signs in the window, I mean, last I checked, that is the First Amendment, all right? It may not have been perfectly expressed. It may have not taken the tone and language that some could appreciate, but I think I can't speak to the operation of the mind of the owner of that business, but I think her intent was to display her rejection of adverse ICE activity, especially at her place of business. So, and when we did talk at the chamber, we also talked about business continuity. What happens if the person doesn't come back quickly from the detention, and what the business could do. So we have been talking to a lot of people on this issue. Yes?
What message do you have to the federal government and the president at this time?
I don't know if I'm going to communicate to the president. I'm going to communicate to the U.S. Attorney because he's Maine, we're Maine. And I think he has sent a message that he has a similar expectation that we do about how the federal government will behave as they conduct their lawful duties. I think if the president is to receive a message, let him receive it from our senators and our congresspersons. That's their responsibility, that's their role. And I hope that that would have more impact than the Portland City Council alone, because I think our position is quite clear. In terms of information, I sent out who they arrested, right? Did you all get that? There's some mugshots. All right, let me do some homework with you. I was not afflicted with the idea of becoming a lawyer, but I spent 32 years in law enforcement. So I actually read this. And I went to the photos. The first individual, it says, Mr. Ali is a criminal illegal alien from Sudan, convicted for false imprisonment, aggravated assault, obstructing justice, and the violation of protection order. I think that's meant to frighten you. I think that's meant to infer that this criminal person was free in our community. But you missed the word convicted. He's been convicted. He's been through the process. If so, has he served his sentence? Is he considered now a free person as far as the criminal justice system is concerned? And that's one of their lead arrests. Now, he might be in violation of a civil infraction under the Immigration Code. That's your job. Find out. The next one, Ambassador Bernie, a criminal illegal alien from Ethiopia, convicted for aggravated assault and cocaine possession. And convicted. What's the actual termination of that case? What's its posture? Did he become illegal as a consequence of the conviction, or did he enter this country lawfully, as many have? And that's always lost in the narrative. Elmara Correa, a criminal illegal alien from Angola, previously arrested for endangering the welfare of a child. Was she found not guilty? Or are we just going to be satisfied that she was arrested? This is a problem for the Fourth Estate. We are not members of your estate. That's your work. And last but not least, because it appears that the assistant director was indicting communities, Danny Lopez Cortez, a criminal illegal alien from Guatemala, convicted for OUI. Right? Those were her 5 top picks to show you the state of crime and justice in Maine. OUI. If we're going to talk about this issue, let's talk about facts. If we're going to provide guidance, let us be calm. Let us be leaders. If ICE has an issue with criminal aliens, let them actually be criminals, right? And we could come to terms. But I don't know. You're the judge of that. With that, I don't plan on taking the podium this long. Council Fournier.
I remember first name, last name, April Fournier, APRILFOURNIER. I'm one of our city's at-large counselors, and I apologize for my casual state of dress as I was out today in the community observing like we've asked so many of our community members to do. Because one of the things that I know as an Indigenous person is I have a lot of friends and relatives in the Minnesota and Minneapolis area. And so what they have seen is detention of our very own Indigenous community members. And so when we were notified that we would have ICE operations here in Portland, one of the most important things to me was to be out in the community with our neighbors, with our relatives, watching and observing, and really trying to reinforce with everyone, because this is not day-to-day business for us, is to observe, to show up for your community, to make sure that everyone understands that really immigrants are what make Portland just such an incredible place to be. And what we're not only going to see the social impact and what we all feel when these operations are happening in our neighborhoods, in front of our schools, in front of our grocery stores, is we're also going to see an economic impact. These are now families that will have potentially the primary breadwinner in their household has been disappeared. So how are they going to make rent? So we have the potential for an increase of evictions. We're seeing impacts to our schools for all of these members who are teachers, who are students, who are working in the cafeteria or working as bus drivers. If they're not available, our schools are now shorthanded. We're seeing that, with businesses around the city. If these people are being disappeared, there's also a gap. And so these are just such critical members of our community. If we saw that this immigration enforcement was consistent, was following the law with this administration, I don't think any of us would have the level of anxiety that we're having right now. And so, again, I apologize that I'm a little casual today, but it's because I believe if you're going to be of the community, you need to be out in the community and having eyes on. And so, as Councilor Ali mentioned, there are networks that have been set up for communities to stay in communication with each other, to make sure they're checking up on each other, observing, recording, so that we have this information to be able to provide back to any of the legal entities if we do see that operations are not being carried out as they're supposed to be according to law. But I'm so proud here to stand with this council and with our mayor and with all of our city staff and our school staff and our school administration to continue to keep Portland operating and being the place that we know that it is, despite what's happening right in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I'd also call Councilor Sarah McNevich, who represents probably the most diverse district in the city.
Thank you, Mayor. That's Sarah McNevich, District 1, SARAH, MICHNIEWICZ. As the mayor said, this is the most diverse district in the city and the state. We have a large immigrant population that continues to grow and thrive and bring value and vitality and economic benefit and life to this city. It's our responsibility to stand up for the communities that make our city what it is. We have a tremendous opportunity here to look out for them, to stand up, to record, to monitor what's going on lawfully, legally. As my colleagues have alluded to, there are legitimate reasons for immigration enforcement. It's the methods that are being employed and the broadcast approach that is so objectionable to so many. There's no legitimate purpose that's being pursued that cannot be achieved through due process. And I think that's the sticking point for a lot of us. I would encourage everyone to pay attention to what's going on around you, to look out for your neighbors, to know your rights, to know your responsibilities, and to know your resources, to know where to turn when you want to either report something or to share information or to assist other people, whether they be, walking to school or just looking to have groceries to survive day to day in their homes. That's our strongest asset in Portland, is our sense of community and our sense of pride and our sense of knowing what is right. And that's what this council stands for. That's what I stand for. It's what the mayor stands for. And I know that's what the vast majority of our citizens stand for, and what we will continue to support and continue to act on, no matter what comes forward in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Last but not least, Councilor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regina Phillips, REGINA-PHILLIPS. I represent District 3. As I sit here with my colleagues, there isn't anything new that I can say to you other than with this, I don't know if there's warrants out there or, whatever. All I know is what I hear is that some folks are just being detained just because, right? We're very similar to Minnesota. They're just being detained because they are. My concern is with the children that are being left behind. We have families that are people, men and women, mothers and fathers that are literally being dragged away from their children is what I hear. And, if you have a child that is either in the grocery store or at home with a parent, they don't know how to use a cell phone. They don't know how to get in touch with their other parent. They don't know how to get in touch with a relative. And as we know, ICE is not coordinating with anybody. They're not coordinating with either police department. They're not coordinating with the Department of Health and Human Services to make sure these children are safe. And so we have to mobilize, because there are kids out there that are literally being dragged away from their parents. And that's the most concerning to me, is what is actually happening to those children, where their parents are being taken away literally at the gas station or the grocery store or at schools, because they just don't have the means and the ability to reach out to their relatives and say, hey, I'm stuck, I'm here by myself. And then where do they go? Where do they go? Because we know our foster care system is completely and utterly is overwhelmed. And so that's the concerning thing. If you have a warrant, if you want to detain somebody, like the mayor says, there's probably not much we can do about that, but do it in a manner where children are not left by themselves. That's just cruel.
Thank you, Councilor. Superintendent, Chair. No, both of you. Listen up. One part that can be left behind is when a city is going through this type of journey. And you heard it at the beginning of the conversation through Councilor Phillips. It's just not about what's occurring to the adults. The kids are there. And the kids suffer along with us, or celebrate along with us, or made anxious because they don't understand what adults are actually trying to do. So one of the first persons that called me the morning that we knew ice was in the city was Superintendent Scallon. So we protect our constituents, they protect our families, and the most important thing that we all agree on, our kids. So I'd like to defer the podium to the chair, Sarah Lenz, and I'll stand with the counselors. So if you have any questions that are geared to families in the schools, they're here to respond to them. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Lentz, S-A-R-A-H, last name L-E-N-T-Z, and I'm chair of the board here in Portland. I told a reporter this morning a story about my own child, who, when I picked him up from school, said to me, first off, he said, "Today my teacher told me there was ice on the playground and we needed to be careful." And I thought that there were people there to get me and my friends. That level of worry and anxiety is what all of our children are carrying as they go into the classroom. And we know that learning doesn't happen when kids are hungry, when they are scared, and when they don't feel safe. And what is happening in our community right now is making our community not feel safe. And that is not okay. As so many counselors have said today, there are other ways to do this. There are other ways that don't impact our kids and their families in the ways that they are feeling impacted right now. And I just want to say thank you to all of the community members, the individuals, and the organizations that are literally working around the clock right now to make sure that our kids have food in their house, that they can get to work or to the bus stop, that they can be connected to legal services and other resources that they need because they are fearful of coming out of their house. These are the impacts that we're seeing on a daily basis. Our attendance rates are way down. Kids are not coming to school and their families are holding in their houses. So that's where we are. And that's where we're going to stay, and we're going to hold the line and do whatever we can as educators and community members to make sure that our schools are safe and predictable spaces for everyone that are there. Yeah.
At this point, are you aware of any students, staff, or family members of students who've been detained by ICE in the last few days?
I can confirm that there have been people detained, but that's as much as I'm going to share.
Thank you.
Can you give us the number? How much is attendance down, and what percentage of the student population is minorities or immigrants?
Yeah, so I'm happy to give a little bit of background, and then I'll ask Superintendent to give specific numbers on attendance. But in the Portland Public Schools, we have 53% or 52% students of color in our district. About a third of our students are multilingual learners. And we also have about 500 students who are currently housing insecure. So those are just some of the statistics of our students right now, but I'm happy to turn it over to the superintendent who can talk more about attendance.
Good afternoon. Ryan Scallon, R-Y-A-N-S-C-A-L-L-O-N. Attendance varies significantly as the impact is not even across our school community. So as Chair Lentz just shared, we are about 52-53% students of color, and we see a range of attendance impacts. Our overall attendance is down more than 5 percentage points, but we have some schools where the attendance drop is closer to 15 to 20% down. And so there's a wide range of how it's been impacting.
Are there any measures being taken to make remote learning available? Any plans in the works to have entire schools go remote if need be?
So we know from the research coming out of COVID, as well as what we see happening in schools, that the safest, best place for students to learn for social reasons, for physical reasons, for academic reasons are in person. So as much as possible, we are planning to maintain in-person learning. The last 2 days I've been in our schools and have seen that they continue to make sure that it's a safe, welcoming place for all of our students. And so as much as possible, we want that to be. It would also not be prudent if we weren't planning for the range of contingencies. And so leadership in our district, including our school leaders, have engaged and have done some planning around the potential for an online piece, but at this point, our intent is to remain in person.
So I haven't heard anything about this, but just want to confirm with you, have you had any confirmed sightings of ICE agents on or near Portland Public School campuses?
So we have not had any sightings or reports of agents on our property around schools. Obviously, there is a lot of information going on around ICE action, and obviously we are a small city and with schools throughout the city. And so there's nothing that is in the immediate vicinity, but certainly in the neighborhood.
If there's nothing else, we can all say goodnight. Thank you.
Thank you.